whatever your idea of it getting really bad is, when you're saying yes to grief and you're actually allowing yourself to feel it, I think that it gets worse. And then somehow through that process of transformation, it puts us in service to something greater than just ourselves and our pain.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Welcome, everybody. This is Enduring Grief, Healing Practices, and True Stories of Living After Loss. And today is a bucket list day for me. My guest, Pixie Lighthorse, is somebody who I have watched from afar and sometimes a little closer than far as we've worked together on some small projects here and there or been in the same Zoom room at least a couple times. And I asked Pixie, I slid into her DM to see if maybe she would come on our podcast because she is such an incredible voice of wisdom, but also reason. And her books, which you can find on our website, clairemourning.org, have been transformative in my life. And I know in the lives of the people with whom I've at least shared those books. I often quote Pixie's work in presentations I do. You guys have probably heard me talk about some of the stuff in other episodes if you're a regular listener. And so, maybe you can sense that I'm nervous because I feel nervous. Like a celebrity is in my little corner studio in my office, and I feel so honored and so special that you said yes, Pixie. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And I look forward to this conversation and putting you at ease.
Thank you. It will happen eventually. Just to top off, what made you say yes to this?
Well, I feel like I have a certain responsibility to this area that I live in. And so when folks like you or Elizabeth Johnson or Shannon Kelly ask me to show up, there's a kind of like a really important part of my value system is kinship. And I find that experiences like this can lead into sort of a little gateway drug into building kinship, which is more than relationship, much more indigenous than what we consider relationship to be. So I said yes because I like to form these sort of cross-pollination relationships with people who are in not just the death trade, but people who are challenging systems that make enduring grief harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. And, I was just telling Pixie or reminding her that, our mission is to shift the culture of grief. And one of the reasons why I started Clear Mourning was because I realized how fantastic the support I had was and how absolutely atypical it was because the normal culture wouldn't have supported me the way I was supported. And that was because I was with people who had grief-informed practices and language and less fear around being with suffering than the typical person. And I just really was thinking about how the regular world doesn't have that for sure. I mean, my husband at the time certainly didn't have that, and how that, I don't know if expedited is the word, but it eased the way or created strategies or just space for me to do the work, which is why I am where I am today. And so I do think it's upon us to develop these relationships that allow us to build increased safety nets for our community and work together to move the needle.
Yeah. And create good death experiences that honor people's lives, seeing as how death is a part of life and how many of the systems that we're operating within are sort of working against our humanity. I think Clear Mourning and Elizabeth Johnson's Peaceful Presence and so many of the other, as a little community, our friend Casey Anseth really helped us to come together around her death. I feel like we're creating some bonds around that, and it really tickles me to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I just can't tell you how grateful I am to have your time. So we did no prep. Normally, we might have had a conversation about what we're going to talk about. So we just had a quick chat before plugging in here. And I'm so excited to hear the most important things that you'd like to say today on this podcast.
Okay, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it. Tip of the top is what?
The most important things I'd like to say. I don't know who your listenership is, but I'm imagining that they're tuning in because they have already had an experience with grief.
I think a lot of our audience is either a griever or somebody who's trying to figure out how to care for somebody who's in grief.
Yeah. I think that I run a couple of grief groups on Monday nights, and I find it to be very easy for me to hold grief for others. And I think that it's a little bit of a superpower in some people, but it's a field that can be cultivated by folks who don't feel like it's their instinct. And the sort of how behind that is to do some of our inner work to become comfortable with uncomfortable things.
Amen. That's it. It's coming to terms with the fact that you can't fix it unless you can resurrect the dead or undo the event or fix the problem when you really just can't.
I mean, in the West, somatic therapies teach us how to handle our own constrictions in our bodies, right? Teach us how to tolerate what's coming up for us in a moment. And so practice makes practice.
Right.
And being uncomfortable, we're so sort of obsessed and loyal to comfort in this culture. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we treat death and the dying the way that we do. And it's not working out very well for people.
No. And where do you see that most, that it's not working out?
Well, in hospice centers, there seems to be sometimes a disconnect between the dying and the family. When there is a bridge between the dying and the family or the loved ones, that there seems to be more connection available there, connection to the process, connection to what's going to happen after, connection to like that piece around not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do, because we're really conditioned to fix and to rescue, to make uncomfortable things stop. And so when folks that work in the death trade come with that sort of compassionate skill set, then it helps people exhale, right?
Totally. I remember saying to somebody, amidst my darkest days, as I was seeking support for my husband, and they were like, I just don't know what to say. And I was so frustrated because I feel like nobody knows what to say. And there's just got to be a difference between I don't know what to do and I choose to do nothing. And there's so much compassion that has to go, I think, on both sides, supporter and griever, when you don't know what to do and you're kind of just throwing noodles at the wall to see what sticks in terms of being supportive. But can we just lower the bar? Because you don't have to have this skill set necessarily to care for somebody. Like there's not there's a little manual I made on the website, but I think people get really wrapped up in doing it perfectly and according to a plan.
We're also obsessed with perfection.
We are obsessed with perfection. And there's just no perfect way to support somebody whose life fell apart or is so sad or is about to lose.
I mean, magic words in my world. And I think that when people freeze up and they don't know what to say, then they don't say anything. And then too much time passes. And then that window of time becomes even more uncomfortable. And so saying nothing begins to be perpetuated. I had a girlfriend lose her husband when we were 25 years old. And she said to me at one point, because of course I was driving back and forth to San Jose to just sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink, bad booze, and witness her in her grief and let her make the sounds of grief that people don't like to hear sometimes. Yeah. And she said, it's funny how you have people in your life, but when tragedy strikes, a lot of people fall away. And I don't want to say that folks are choosing that. It's almost like a disability. Yeah. An emotional incapacity to know what to say. So some magic words in my world is, what can I do for you? What would be the most helpful thing? But when people are in grief, sometimes they don't know.
They don't.
I don't know. You want to drop off food? I don't care what it is.
Right.
Just
do the thing.
And don't ask me to have to conjure the emotional bandwidth to have to describe it to you. So this is where having a little team of people, do a little mill train, do a little people who, in a healthy society and community, we have built-in people who already know what's going to be helpful to us. So creating those communities and those friendships, especially when you've seen someone deal with a death and you're like, I kind of want what that person has, then we start building kinship ties with those people because we can count on each other when our time comes or our loved one.
Well, and there's really not a whole lot of reinventing the wheel that we must do like you said, people know. I mean, that was one of the meditations I would do in really dark, angsty moments in my grief. And I would picture being cared for by a group of elder women who didn't even need me to speak because their intuitiveness and their wisdom and experience, having dealt with it so many times through the course of humanity, knew what I needed, which was to be loved on, which was to not think about washing my hair or what was for dinner or how I was going to get through, because I just got to be in grief. And we are so robbed of that experience as grievers, of just being allowed to be in it. There's so few times. I mean, I had a client recently tell me, well, I was really disappointed because I had that day off and I wanted to get a lot of grief out on that day, but it just didn't show up. And that's so practical. Like, what a thing to do. You want to do that on your day off and not on your day at work. And yet
grief is not
like that. And how sad that we try to schedule it because that's the world we live in.
Well, you know how I feel about capitalism stealing from us.
Tell us, though. Not everybody knows.
Well, I mean, my dad's death in 2023 is a great example of that, because many family members who were here and wanted to be here for the 11 days that it took him to die had to get back to work. They had X amount of bereavement time, and it wasn't, we do not live in a society that values humanity. We live in a society that values money and extracts our time, energy, resource, and labor from us. So we're not going to get the time that we need to grieve in the ways that we might want to. But in repairing that, in figuring out how to repair that, I mean, there are grief ceremonies here in town that take place. There are circles like mine that you can come to. The resources are starting to become more abundant. The conversations, which is kind of where the magic happens, are starting to become more robust. And so sometimes culture repair happens from the inside out. I had an experience and I want it to be better for other people. I didn't get the experience that I want. So how do I do that? I mean, this podcast is an example of that. And also, grief and loss and death are still pretty taboo subjects. It's not all of us who want to just sit around and talk about how to do death better.
No, it's true. I mean, you can make people scramble. When I've learned, I tell them I was a hospice social worker. Nobody likes that. That my child was killed by a drunk driver, or that my dad died 3 months later. Like, boom, watch them run. Which sometimes is kind of
real.
True. Like on an airplane, maybe I might drop one on purpose just to be like, let's create some space.
Right.
But it is a social experiment to see who shows up to those remarks, those explanations about who I am as a person, and can tolerate, honestly, the discomfort that brings up in them. You can see it.
Tolerance is starting to move its way into honoring and celebration and things like that. Let's start with tolerance. It's a great, just to be able to sit and hear someone say, my child was killed by a drunk driver and my dad died 3 months later.
Yeah.
Let it hang in the room with us.
Oh, people can sweat.
Yeah. That's big loss all at one time. You know, we can model for people. It's not telling folks what to do, but it's giving them permission, which grief changes us. You know, kind of like menopause. Grief gives us the opportunity to stop giving any fucks about what people think about how we're showing up. Our hair's unwashed. Oh, well, I used to care about that. But then when I went through this emotional ordeal and upheaval and this heartbreak, which there's so many heartbroken people walking around in the world, big losses such as death of a loved one, but also little losses. I don't have permission in my world, especially for men. We talked a little bit about this in our pre-podcast chat. Like, you just got to hold it all in. Where's it going? It's going into your kidneys. It's going into your liver. Maybe you're drinking it away. It's going somewhere. It's being held somewhere.
God, it's heartbreaking to watch them just, absolutely. You can see it happening. Honestly, I just, you know, sometimes if I get a referral for a couple who's lost a child, it's like the wife is here and the husband, you're just like, please come, please. But it's just that
conventional model of provider or anchor. Sometimes it's like white knuckling to try to be the anchor. Men in this conventional sort of stereotype, these roles, don't get to let go.
Yeah.
They have to hold it together for everybody else. The men in my grief group, I don't want to tell anyone else's story, but the men are in there just sort of naming so many things that they have never even been asked before.
Wow. A space.
Yeah.
Finally.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so what would if you had the chance to say to men who are grieving little losses, big losses, life-changing events, what do you wish they could hear you say?
I think what I've said that's most impactful is we talked a little bit also about kind of starting at the roots. I like to name systems of violence. That's just kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to call things what they actually are. And a system that prioritizes money or keeping it together over raw, real, emotional. Emotions are driving our entire world. And yet we have this idea that they're not.
Yeah.
And so we emote in the ways that the culture allows us to, but never in the ways that it doesn't. There's silent, unofficial taboos in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want, I don't know if any men listen to this podcast, but I want that you all to know that you're not grieving is sort of killing all of us. And your children as well. It is an obstacle to bonding and relationship, connection, the things that we over here really value. And I think about what Bell Hooks wrote in her book, The Will to Change, which is we are asking the menfolk to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And then we're putting them in a double bind because when they really show us that vulnerability, we're like, no, put it back in the bottle. Maybe let a tiny bit out. Right. But if you can't keep it together, then who's going to be keeping it together when I, who have more permission, lose it?
Right. Gosh, yeah. That's a conundrum. It's a problem.
It's a big quandary, and it's poisoning our cultures and our societies in ways that not that long ago, not that many generations ago, there was more space.
Really? I wouldn't have expected you to say that. I would have thought that it would have been the other way around, where they were buttoned up even tighter way back when. But I guess way back when, you had to, because it was part of surviving.
Yes. And depending on where you're from, when the project started that began to condition us for capitalism, for structural racism, for all of the systems that we're really starting to peer into and see how they're connected to other forms of poverty and maternal death and, the medical industrial complex and the incarceration rates. They're not separate issues.
No.
Sabonfu Some, who has probably come up in some of your conversations before, who was a wonderful teacher of grief to so many of us in this town, used to say, if men did their grief work, and I really want to include anyone else into this group who takes on a patriarchal approach to their feelings and their grief, and that can really be anyone. But if we did our grief work, we wouldn't have to worry about war. We wouldn't have to worry about violence. Our prisons would be somewhat empty. A lack of grieving is causing a lot of our cultural, spiritual sicknesses.
I totally agree. And I mean, something I always talk about is Richard Rohr saying pain not transformed is transmitted. And this inability or unwillingness or both combined to face these darker, shadowy, less than joyous, positive experiences are such a detrimental, it's a detrimental outcome to our culture and to our children.
I think when you start playing in the sandbox of grief, though, I mean, Sarah, because you've been all around it, there is, in the most profound, extreme pain, I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a child. Mm-hmm. It's everybody's worst fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But even at our very, very worst, eventually, when we're with it, with grief as a companion, as an ever-winding river leading out to an ocean of our wholeness, mm-hmm. there is ridiculous laughter. there is profound appreciation for beauty.
Right.
Suddenly, grief opens us to all of this possibility. I always get goosebumps on this spiel, but like suddenly our whole world wakes up. It's like our eyes open in a new way.
I totally agree. And that's like the only hope I wish to offer people. And I know sometimes I'll say these things or we'll hear that. And if this were me listening at year 1.5, I'd be like, those people don't know what they're talking about. That will never be for me. That will never be for me.
I will torture.
I will torture till the end of time. I cannot imagine an ending to this torture. I couldn't see it. And there is the shadowy, darker part where you have to go through that heavy mystery of how will my life turn out, which can be so terrifying most of the time in those chunks, those chapters of the heavy grief. There's no way to like really articulate, but I think you know what I mean, right? Like it's all heavy. We know that. It's all really hard. We know that. But there are these softening of the edges that occur if you are willing to be in that chapter long enough to let it shift. But you can't just like dip in, dip out, or not at all go in and expect the shift. You just can't.
The goodies don't come until you've gone through the bottleneck.
Exactly.
That's not as
there we
eloquent
go.
as Richard Rohr.
Right. But it's true. And so it's like to convince people that there's this payoff.
Treasure,
the love. It's the love that's waiting for you at the end. Fear of
loneliness is also, with so many folks that I see too, like they don't want to, we have terms for it, like ugly cry.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be seen that way. We have to keep it buttoned up because what will people think?
Yeah.
They might leave us. They might discard us. They might abandon us. We might freak them out.
I'm too much.
Yeah.
I'm too much. This is going to expire because I've required too much of you.
If you're building community, and I know we're not here to talk about building community, but let's talk about it.
We're talking about it all.
Grief requires community. And I think that look for people who are able to withstand and who have come through it, like you.
Mm-hmm.
Look for those people and go around where they are. Like be around them.
Yeah.
Start building kinship with people who have already been through what you are ultimately going to face.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of people can relate to that if you've experienced loss, because I know for me, like day one, I was like, somebody find me a mother who's been through this. Somebody find me a mother because I need somebody who knows something about this room I've just entered to tell me, because everything is gone. Everything I knew to be true about my life is gone. How will I survive? Bring me that person, please, 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 please bring me that person. And that's why I do this podcast, is like, because each of my guests is one of those people for somebody, and people don't create time for this. People don't manifest these relationships. We want you to, but if this is the version you get for now, it's something, I suppose, right?
I mean, we're just sitting here in this room having been through it and having said yes to that hard journey.
Yep.
Drag us through the mud.
Drag us through.
Grief, have your way with us. It's inconsistent, and we love consistency. It is unpredictable. We love predictability. It's very uncomfortable. We love comfort. I like to play with numbers. I think there's probably about 60% of the population, I'm just going to throw that number out there, who are so willing to keep it real. So willing to tiptoe at least into the shallow end of the pool. Mm-hmm. I just swim in the deep end all the time like you. Mm-hmm. I just don't even have any time for the kiddie pool anymore.
I don't have time for the kiddie pool.
And, that actually started when my friend's husband died and everyone disappeared. Yeah. And I wasn't hanging out with her because nobody was there for her and I felt obligated. I was genuinely knowing that we're all going to have that experience. And what kind of a friend do I want to be?
Right.
Well, here we are talking about values again. Mm-hmm. What do I value? Especially being Native, being Indigenous, I come from Choctaw Nation, it's very important to be connected. It's very important for me to know that I'm never alone. My ancestors always are in a big formation behind me. And I have a friend in deep grief right now who said, Pix, I just think there's some things that we're going to have to, I know we just have to do them alone. And I was like, buddy, I don't think we should ever be doing anything alone unless we absolutely have to. Here's another problem with our system is this individualism. It has us thinking that we're just supposed to figure everything out all by ourselves.
Or that then we're weak or something's wrong with us or we're needy or something. I mean, there's just such an incredible story that goes along with seeking and receiving support.
We're terrified of our authenticity, and it's killing us.
It really is. I wish that we had the magic words to say to people like, I mean, oftentimes I'll talk about, strength does not mean I go it alone. There's evidence that shows when there's cultural permission to come together in a collective grief experience, people do. Why doesn't that apply to your deepest loss in your heart? Not, some celebrity that nobody's ever met, that we can suddenly grieve together as a culture because there's this permission. And I'm so desperate to bring that into people's homes and say, you don't have to go it alone. Please.
Stop.
Makes it harder for you and for everybody else.
Shifting the culture, which I know is one of your goals, one of your drivers, is to take what we know from the physical world, right? Many hands make light work. And so let's move all those books out of that bookshelf into the other room. If we all do it, we all carry 20 books, then we get it done in 5 minutes.
Right.
It's not about getting it done, but if we apply that same logic that I know people love to heart work, it's a little more of a slippery fish. But if you apply it to heart work, then it's the burden that people are so afraid to put on people with their grief is made lighter. The whole entire room, the whole entire world gets lighter when we grieve together.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, my story just highlights that so very clearly. They, like my main supporters had then their supporters, like Shannon, Nora. I don't know if you know Nora or met Nora. She's one of Shannon's good friends. She was a yoga teacher anyway, one of Casey's dear friends. My bestie, and she was my main person, one of my main people. And then she would talk about how Shannon was her person.
Right.
And I think even Shannon could tell you she had a person, probably because holding all of that was so much and so hard. And my team, my sweet little 4 to 5 gals who loved on me and took such good care of me, all had their own communication about whether or not I was going to make it that day,
That's right.
and how to keep me breathing for that day. And then they had their circles that took care of them because they were doing hard, heavy lifts with me. And look at guys, right? I mean,
Shannon was in a council with me, and it's so true. I have about 6, 7 people in my life.
6, 7?
6, 7. Who are, I call them my support core, right? And when I have news to share, or I'm scared, or I've got to go to court about a thing, or whatever, I just plop that right in the center of the room. I just lay that on the altar, and they do whatever they have capacity for. It's not falling on one person.
Right.
It's not falling on a partner. It's not falling on a child. It's falling on a group that has consented to being there for me. And I think that I want everyone to have a support core.
Yeah.
I don't know how people make it through hardship without one.
I don't either. Well, they don't. Not easily. Not well. There's certainly people I've watched try, and it
feels so lonely.
Dusty road, a long and dusty road. And it's painful for everybody who loves them. It really is. Tell us what you mean by violent systems, because I don't know if everybody will have the same understanding. Violent
systems are the ones that don't allow us to grieve.
Okay.
That create obstacles to our authenticity. And it is strategic because it is for capitalism. It is for achieving the manifest destiny. And that is the same system that makes Elon Musk a $600 billion billionaire.
Yeah.
And we want to talk here in this town about our homeless population and what a tragedy it is. And we need to move them out of everybody's sight because the tourists don't like them.
Right.
You know, that's That's a violent system.
That is a violent system.
It's inhumane, and I want us to call it what it is. So if people are dying in the freezing weather every year, like they do here every year, that's against life, and that's against humanity. And as an Indigenous, hopefully someday matriarch, it's a huge priority for me to stop doing things, stop living in ways that go against life. Violent systems don't honor life.
No, they rob people of their humanity,
of their connection, of their clanships, of knowing who their family is. And this is a nation of immigrants who may or may not have. The fantasy is that folks came to this nation believing it was a brand new world and that it was going to be a land of milk and honey. But we don't really know what it cost folks to get on a ship and leave their family and their homelands and their families' graveyards, everything behind. Imagine the grief. Do you think it was able to be felt? Perhaps we have a nation of people full of ancestral legacy burdens.
Oh my goodness. Grief. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about leaving Bend and I'm like, oh God, I couldn't possibly.
Your people are
My
here.
people are here. And that's a very pitiful example or comparison. But just to stop and pause and think about that for yourself, like how we could get a new car and there's grief around the old car because that was our baby car. And we love that car. That car got me here and there. That's a car. And even then we don't pause to transform the suffering so that we don't transmit. Even then. So when we talk about violent systems in terms of the grief process, say more.
Anything that cuts us off from our humanity. So it is human to grieve. It just is.
Is it supposed to be painful?
I think that heartbreak is supposed to happen because it does.
It does. And it's not funny that I'll have people come in here and they're like, I'm so sad about my grief and this thing that's happened, whether it's a death or what. And, everybody in my life just said, I really need a grief counselor. So here I am. And I'm like, that's fine. Because we all, are thirsty to be heard and I can do that for you, but I can't fix it. No, there's no grief counselor who can make the grief stop or go away. Hate to tell you, love to tell you, can't happen. And I think that, the violent systems say like, figure it out, get it done, stop it from happening because it's not supposed to be painful for too long.
Grief in its most overwhelming, thank you for that. Grief in its most overwhelming state is sort of in that picture that you're painting, which is when it's at its most overwhelming, it can feel like you're drowning. And so to do that alone, we can't see a shift happening. We can't allow our mindset to be one of like, this grief is transforming me.
Right.
Into what? Someone that I want to be. I'm never going to be the same after this loss.
Gosh, that just blew my mind what you said. Like, this grief is transforming me into what? I don't know that I've ever paused to think. I think I've experienced that and reflected on who I am now, of course, and what part grief has played in that. But I don't know that I've paused to think like this is a transformation occurring. And I mean, I had a shit month in February. I grieved so hard all through February. It totally caught me off guard. It's been almost 10 years since my loss. I can typically see the waves coming at me and be at least kind of braced for them. Man, this one just caught me.
The waves took you out.
Took me out, down. Dirty dog down. And the next time that happens, I am going to cling to that like I do a lot of the things that you've said and written, Pixie. This one's an inside job is my favorite.
Yeah.
And I have to constantly challenge that because I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, which I don't know if that means anything to you, but I am guarded like a fort. I am pissed off. I am scared of vulnerability. I refuse to receive care unless you're forcing me. I mean, in my unenlightened self at few times, but I can read, this one's an inside job, which is from Pixie's book, Prayers of Honoring Grief, and it's Prayers for a Broken Heart. I can read that as it's just on you, Sarah. Is that how you meant it?
I think that what I mean by grief being an inside job is that it changes our heart. it moves just like pregnancy. Your heart moves like 4 inches or something like that. Grief does things to our heart. It does things to our body. It can traumatize our brains. It can change our brain matter. When we say yes, we volunteer, we consent, we ask for that transformation to make us better. It's going to make us worse for a while because all of our expectations of ourselves are going to go down. We're not going to be able to be there for people in the same way. Maybe our productivity at work is going to go down. Maybe we're going to get depressed and maybe we're going to have to take a short run of a medication or something. Who knows? Whatever your idea of it getting really bad is when you're saying yes to grief and you're actually allowing yourself to feel it, I think that it gets worse. And then somehow through that process of transformation, it puts us in service to something greater than just ourselves and our pain.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love that.
So it's an inside
transforming
job
me.
first.
First, it's an inside job because it takes you to say yes. You to say yes to the process. You to saying yes that I trust. Nothing stays the same. The darkest depths of crying where you think your guts are going to fall out, it will change. It can't go on. Nothing can go on forever. And allowing yourself to believe that, I think, takes a lot of courage.
Folks, I hear folks saying things like, thank you. Absolutely. It is going to change. It's not going to last forever. But that is the terror. The place of terror is if I open this floodgate, I'm not going to be able to close it back. Tears do dry up, They do shift. Oftentimes tears, if we can just use that part of grief, can wash us.
Yeah.
And clean us. That's what they're meant to do. Our waters, just like Earth's waters, are meant to cleanse us. We sweat, we cry when we feel moved to. If we block it, if we stop it, if we put antiperspirant on that stuff, it's clogging. It's not allowing grief to move. It wants to move. And it wants to move through you and change you.
So we might even be telling you that if it feels so terrible right now, you're on the right path. If you are in those parts of grief, either in the beginning or like I was just describing almost 10 years later, a time that just knocked you off your feet and it feels so bad, so hard, so sad, that might be a sign that you're on the right track because that is from where the transformation will occur. That is from where we will find the growth and maybe the answer to this beautiful new question I'll be asking myself, which is into what? Into who?
There's a beautiful book called Becoming Kin by Anishinaabe author Patty Krawick, and she says, grief is the persistence of love.
It is.
If you want to love really well, do your grieving. Be with grief.
It's part of it. It's part of the deal because either you or them are going to die.
And that's right. And grief isn't work. It's not. We make everything sound like doing the work. Got to do the work.
Right.
It's just let it do you. Like, let grief be with you.
Surrender to it. Trust it. Develop a relationship with it.
Have you ever tried to get in a river and fight the current, swim upstream?
Yeah.
That's kind of like not what we're really meant to do. We're meant to sort of float and coast at times. Waters are one of those things, like grief for me is in the West on the medicine wheel, and it has the power. I wrote a book called The Wound Makes the Medicine, and in it, which is I was processing a lot of grief, complex, old grief that got triggered by new grief. And I was just in a big old grief hole. And I was like, well, I'll just do what Casey does, which is create my way through it. And so I wrote this book, and some of the themes in the section that is around water is that it will pull you under and drown you. And it will also kind of wash cloth off your tears. Its waters we can float in them. We can be held and cradled by them, or we can get pulled under. And it's going to do all of those things to us.
It is.
Every single one of them.
And I don't think that you can outsmart it. Like, it's common for you, whether it's manifested in an illness or a relationship that gets destroyed or a substance use, like it doesn't, like it's going to come for you. And I know Shannon and I have talked a lot about that because you can pretend that you're doing a great job of keeping it at bay. And maybe sometimes you are, because I also think that it's okay to have boundaries with your grief. Like, I can't live only as that,
No.
right? But it has to come and go through me. And no matter what it's coming, you can't outwit those waters that need to pull you down sometimes.
We can give it designated time and space. Like going to a grief circle or a grief group or listening to this podcast or things, we can set aside time to honor it, right? It's like going to your grief church. You're going to go give it time. You're going to go lay flowers on the proverbial grave. And we've forgotten about some of those simple types of practices. But just showing up and being like, I don't have anything to say today. I'm going to listen to what other people say about their grief. Maybe it'll start moving inside of me.
Right.
Because when it's stuck is when it turns into an illness or a substance use disorder or things like that. It can be very disabling to us to not work. Not be with our grief.
It is effort, though. There is mental exercise that occurs all the time, I think, to keep... Whether it's to keep on track with the thing I have to do so I'm not overwhelmed by my grief experience right now, or whether it's I can be with it right now and know that it will shift. Nothing lasts forever. Like there is this mental effort that goes into it. And I mean, sometimes it feels like a mental override that is occurring in most of my day. And that's my reality, because my reality includes this deep ache that creates reasons for me to find meaning in ways I never had to before. And that effort occurs.
Do you find any commonalities between people that you talk to about grief? Do they tend to be like curious seeker types? Or...
If they're here, that's usually yes. If they don't start the conversation with, my friend said I needed a grief counselor, so I'm here. Those folks, I'm glad they're here. And I think there's such a great service in listening to people. And I hope that even just me being a comforting presence allows something to start moving in them. But the folks who come to me specifically because they are unsure of how to do the thing with grief that they know they need to and want to do, yes, there is a curiosity. It is. And that is actually one of the reasons why I do the podcast too, Pixie, is because I can't talk to everybody. And, you know, I am a wise one here in Bend, Oregon. Just kidding. One of wise ones having suffered the way I did. I've come out on one side of it. And I just think like if we can get this message to people who maybe don't have resources or time or whatever to get in front of somebody who will share this experience with them, that's one thing we can do.
What helped you? Now I'm interviewing you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What helped you the most when you were at the bottom of your at the bottom of the lake?
Patience. People and loved ones who let me be there. Really just let me be there. Like it wasn't
they
about...
They didn't ask anything of you.
Not whether or not I was hungry, not whether or not I needed something. Like one of the most profound few moments of my grief experience was sitting on the couch, unable to like face out of the blanket because the reality was waiting for me there. And I did, and all I could see were my friend Dean's knees. And he just sat there.
Yeah.
He was saying nothing. And knowing that I could do this crazy thing where I couldn't look outside the blanket and be sobbing so hard, and that his knees were just going to be right there.
Sometimes our sensory systems don't like to make eye contact. They need to be covered up in a cocoon. But to be relational, I think it's probably the Gottman Institute. I don't think it's Terry Real. But someone says like the key question in any relationship is, are you there? Mm. I don't need you to be asking me a bunch of questions and shoving food in my face. But when I go like this, I want to make sure you're there.
That's it right there. That was the most important part. Because whenever I reached out, it seemed like somebody was there.
Yeah. Little anchor, little touchstone. Mm-hmm. There was a stage in my grief that lasted about 3 weeks where I couldn't stop shaking. My whole body was shaking. And I was like, okay, well, maybe somatically it's working something out. But it really freaked me out. And I was so jangled, you know? And so I was in bed every chance that I could be. And friends would come over. Maribel Ramirez came over. Tanya Hughes came over. And they just like put their hands on my feet, my blanketed feet. Yeah. And they would leave. And then someone else would come in. And there were many periods of aloneness. I also danced a lot. Grief wanted me to move my body a lot.
I walked endlessly through the nights, walk. I moved my body a lot, but it was all I could do was walk. I don't know if I could have danced.
Sometimes I couldn't say things.
So definitely couldn't say things.
My body wanted to express in ways that it had never moved before, even though I was making the sounds of grief that only grief makes us make. But body, I really wanted to be fully in my body for it.
Well, and it kind of demands that. I mean, I shook like a leaf. I had forgotten actually that I was so shaky for so long. And Melanie, I don't know if you ever met Melanie. She was Casey's nurse actually, is one of my dearest friends. And she just reminded me of that recently. She's like, don't you remember? You were just like shaking. And I actually hadn't.
Our body's metabolizing the trauma.
There was no effort in that. It just was occurring in my body for sure.
Can you imagine if you had been the kind of person of which I'm sure there are many listening to this podcast and who I have great empathy for who can't do it? The body will not allow that somatic discharge of feelings through the body.
I don't think it's easier. I think it's so much harder, even though it might feel scarier to let the shakes out or let the sounds of grief out. It feels maybe scarier, but trust me, trust us. It's so much harder to keep it in. It's so much harder.
Can you spot people out in the world and be like, they're carrying a heavy freaking load?
Heavy.
Yeah. Eyes down.
Eyes down.
Yeah.
Sweaty looking almost to like, there's a
jaw set.
Yeah, there's a thing about it. Okay, well, that was about the fastest hour.
Thank you.
We have a time limit. I could go on and on and on. Maybe you'll come back. No commitment, but maybe. Where can we find you, Pixie? How do people learn more about you and the work you're doing in the world?
So I'm on the gram, and that's just Pixie Lighthorse. And I also provide food to our community and give death to animals. So I have a cattle operation, Lighthorse Cattle Company. So I'm on the gram with that as well. I have beef throughout the year. I do a whole bunch of different things. I also just launched a kinship school that starts on Mother's Day. It's called Takla Noa, which is means traveling together.
Wow.
So
do you have room for people?
Yes, there's still room. I just announced it yesterday. And that's at my website, pixielighthorse.com. I do grief groups every other Monday.
And is it a closed group? Like once you've started the group, do you keep it closed?
They run about 12 weeks, and each group meets every other week because once a week seems like a lot.
Yeah.
And once a month seems like not enough.
Yeah, I love that.
So
I wonder if you'd ever do a bereaved parents group.
Not being a bereaved parent, do you think that would be something I could be helpful with?
I do. And I don't say that without deep consideration because I wouldn't say that to...
I always try to just reality test my experiences. Yeah.
There's plenty of people who I would say, no, you can't. But I think that your understanding of the process itself would actually help because the cohort would support each other in the sub-loss, right? Like the subtext of the type of loss, but that the leadership around the group would be, and moving through grief can be moving through grief.
But do you know what would be better? If you and I did it together.
Then, yeah. Okay, I'm committed.
See, we're also here to be casting seeds in these kinship building
Exactly.
processes.
We need this so badly. We need a good child loss group for parents. There isn't what I've been looking for. And I've traveled to try and find it. I've, short of creating it myself, which I don't want to do it by myself. So,
you shouldn't have to do anything.
I don't want to do it by
yourself.
Thank you. That is also the next quote of the day. So we've got, this grief is transforming me into what? Into who? And you should never have to do anything by yourself unless you really want to.
Unless you have no other option. Right. Unless it would help you build your confidence or something.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we could use the help.
I love it. What a perfect place to pause. And I'll say pause, not stop, because I think there's going to be a TBD or TBC, to be continued. Thank you, Pixie.
Thank you so much, Sarah.